I am the law. Good morning and welcome to Whenever You Are. I am Bandit Haze, and today I'm going to be talking about Dredd, the 2012 movie starring Karl Urban. Now this is a suggested video, so shout out to Mr. Man. Thank you for the suggestion, and if you would like to suggest a movie, a game, or any topic for me to explain, let me know, because Haze knows everything. Asterix. Now here's the thing about this movie. When you watch it, it seems like a pretty straightforward film, right? I mean, it's set in a world where the police force are judge, jury, and executioner all in one. So pretty much real life. It's about a judge called Dredd who's assigned a trainee judge Anderson to conduct her field assessment. They infiltrate a tower block, just like the raid. The tower block is overrun by a violent gang, also just like the raid. They're corrupt judges, and in the raid there was an undercover cop. You know what? They should have just called this film Dredd. But anyway, it's a pretty straightforward affair, whereas the 1995 Judge Dredd movie with Sylvester Stallone, that had the whole thing about Dredd being a clone but being told he was an orphan, being set up for a crime he didn't commit, having a brother he didn't know about. There's quite a lot going on. Also, fun fact about the first Judge Dredd movie, it was actually the first film that I saw in the cinema. So back then, I'd watched a lot of movies on TV and VHS, right? But I never actually went to the cinema until Judge Dredd. I remember after I watched it, you know, Stallone, he's all muscly and stuff, and I was like, you know what, I want to work out. I'm going to start working out so I can get big muscles like Sylvester Stallone. I'm going to start working out. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run home. I'm going to start now. I'm going to run home. And it's only about maybe 4 miles maybe, but I ran and I ran and I ran and I ran all the way down the roads to the bus stop. I was like, nah, screw this. I ain't running no more. Anyway, here's what I want to talk about with Dredd. So Anderson was deemed unsuitable by the judge aptitude test. She scored 3 points below a pass at the academy, fails the field assessment when she lost her primary weapon, yet Judge Dredd passed her anyway. Now we find out pretty quickly why the judge's council put her through, even though she was deemed unsuitable, because she was the most powerful psychic they come across. But Dredd? Dredd is pretty much the epitome of no-nonsense law enforcement. He doesn't mess around with this 3 points below a pass business. It's like, nah, you failed, simple as. Almost doesn't count. You can't go up to a $2 whore with $1.50. Nah, walk on home, boy. And if you got that reference, put it in the comments. But this guy doesn't even take his helmet off indoors. He's by the book, like an overdue library return. Intelligent jokes. By the way, speaking of not taking a helmet off, that is something from the comics. So when Stallone took the helmet off in his movie, people were pissed because Dredd never takes his helmet off. Except that isn't accurate. Dredd has taken his helmet off on at least a few occasions in the comics, but his face has never been shown, so they should have been pissed that his face was shown, not that he took his helmet off. Just saying, if you're going to be outraged, at least be outraged over the correct facts. So anyway, why does Dredd give Anderson the pass? Well, to avoid any undue suspense, it's not because Mega City 1 feminists were putting pressure on the judges' council to be more inclusive of women. Though that being said, wouldn't be surprised if that had something to do with it. I think what Dredd the movie is a showcase in subtlety. Let me explain. Dredd passed Anderson because despite her failing the assessment, he realizes that she's capable of executing judgment and handling herself well enough, perhaps even better than more experienced judges. Furthermore, because she isn't as easily corruptible as some other judges. And also, because Anderson reminded Dredd of something. Now, when Anderson let the Clan Techie go because she saw him as a victim, Dredd questioned it but didn't really force his point after she explained that it was perhaps the one difference she can make. Which goes back to when they first enter into Peachtree's, the tower block, where Anderson is talking about why she wanted to become a judge, about wanting to make a difference, and Dredd referred to that as admirable. I think that was perhaps a sticking point for Dredd. Going back to the beginning of the film when Anderson is in the room and reading Dredd's mind, she says she senses anger and control and something else behind the control, something almost, and then is cut off by Chief Judge. Now, we never find out what it was that Anderson was sensing, but my speculation would be that she was sensing something almost human. And I don't mean the fact that Dredd is a clone, though technically that counts as well. I mean she senses love and compassion and all the things that make you want to give your crush your last Rolo. And then they still turn you down anyway. And yeah, that sounds corny or whatever, but for real, this movie is effectively a rom-com, just without the rom or the com. But as I said, the movie is pretty straightforward, so unless you are familiar with Judge Dredd outside of this film, then how do you know that he's supposed to be this hard bastard that has lost touch with his feminine side? Subtlety. Well, the hard bastard bit, probably a little more apparent, but the lost human connection bit, subtlety. So when Anderson says she senses anger and control, there's a hint there. During the opening scene when Dredd is chasing down the criminals in a van after they run over a civilian, Dredd shoots at the van, causing the driver to lose control and sends the van tumbling over in a crowded area. When one of the crooks gets away and holds a civilian hostage, Dredd points his gun at the crook, which in and of itself could have made the crook panic and shoot the civilian. Dredd then shoots and kills the crook while he's still holding onto the hostage. P.S. Incidentally, very similar to the scene in RoboCop when RoboCop shoots the crook in the dick while he's holding a hostage in front of him. And that's a movie about an emotionally devoid cyborg. Well, almost emotionally devoid because, you know, Murphy, it's you. And by the way, speaking of RoboCop, when Dredd tells the clan members that they have 20 seconds to comply, that's a RoboCop quote. And a little piece of trivia, when Ed 209 tells Mr. Kinney that he has 20 seconds to comply, Ed 209 shoots about 30 seconds later. When Dredd tells the clan members that they have 20 seconds to comply, Dredd shoots about 18 seconds later. Hard bastard. Anyway, those opening scenes establish that Dredd is a hard-as-nails law enforcement officer who's tough on crooks, and also a little more subtly establishes that Dredd places dispensing justice above everything, including the well-being of civilians. And to further solidify his hard bastard lost humanity-ness, when Dredd gets shot, Judge Lex was surprised that Dredd said wait because he thought that the Judge Dredd was begging for his life. Now it turns out that Dredd wasn't begging for his life, he was just waiting for Anderson to shoot Lex, but the point is, Lex perceived, incorrectly, a weakness that was uncharacteristic of the Judge Dredd. P.S. That scene when Dredd is patched himself up after being shot, incidentally, very similar to the scene in Predator when the Predator is patched himself up after being shot, and that's a film about a killer alien with no compassion. Well, almost no compassion. I mean, he won't kill you if you're unarmed. The only difference between Predator and Dredd is that Dredd doesn't scream like a bitch. But speaking of Predator, when Judge Lex refers to Mega City 1 as a meat grinder, Predator reference. So they cooked up a story and dropped the 6 of us in the meat grinder. And of all the judges in the film, only 6 of them actually enter peach trees. Anyway, so when we get to the end of the film and Dredd pushes Mama over the edge, it makes perfect sense. Even though Mama had a bomb transmitter set to detonate if her heart stops beating. And if you got that reference, put it in the comments. There's no way Dredd could have known if she was lying or not. And if telling the truth, there's no way Dredd could have known if the transmitter was strong enough to send a signal from the bottom. Furthermore, there's no way Dredd could have known where the bombs were. They could have been at the bottom. But he pushes her off anyway because he's a hard bastard with a disconnect from humanity, so much so that he places justice above public safety. But maybe, just maybe, there's something that even the Judge Dredd cares about. Maybe, just maybe, there's something that even the Judge Dredd loves. Maybe, just maybe, there is someone that even the Judge Dredd wants to give his last Rolo to. But we'd have to wait for the sequel to find out. Or maybe it's something that's already in the comics. I'm not that familiar with the Judge Dredd comic line. I've only read one, and that was way back when the year 2000 was still the future. But if I may speculate as to what it might be, I'd guess that it's something to do with children, and here's why. The punishment for attempted murder of a judge is death, and Judge Dredd himself was very clear on that. Yet, when the two kids tried to kill him, he only stunned them. Even though, before the attempted murder, Dredd told both of them that it made no difference to him whether they were in body bags or Juve Cube, and after the attempted murder, he only switched to stun at the last second before shooting. You don't gotta be a psychic to know that he was at least thinking about killing them, but he didn't. Which means there is something that can soften the hard bastard. And speaking of things that we might potentially see in a sequel, I don't think Anderson's psychic ability is as strong as it's made out to be, or at least there's an exploitable limit. Anderson let the Clan Techie go because she saw him as a victim of the Marmar clan, which is true, but he wasn't completely innocent. There's a few occasions where he volunteers information to Marmar that he really didn't have to. And maybe for some of it you could say that he did it because he was scared, but even still, he didn't have to tell Marmar that he was able to track where Dredd is if she let Dredd speak on the intercom, and there's no way she would have known any different. And letting him go turned out to be a terrible decision because the Clan Techie later went on to be a general of the First Order. Nice going, Anderson. And another thing about Anderson's psychic ability. Now, she said that she didn't wear the helmets because it would interfere with her mind reading. Yet, she was able to read Judge Kaplan's mind when she had her helmet on. And way before that, she was able to read Judge Dredd's mind with his helmet on through a wall. So either there's some unexplained caveats here, or somebody done goofed up. And speaking of goofed up, why did Kay try to shoot Anderson with her lawgiver? I mean, surely he'd know that there'd be an ID failsafe, especially if he's seen a lot of judges in his time. So, to quote Philip DeFranco, "Don't be stupid, stupid." And that is what I think of Dredd Villagers. What do you think? Mega City 1 or Mega City Lost? Let me know down below, and if you liked this video, give it a like and share it amongst your friends. If you did not like it, then give it a dislike and share it amongst your enemies. Either way, let me know your reasons in the comments. Subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for watching, and until whenever, if ever, your move, creep.